All right. Let's go ahead and get this thing going. Let's get this show on the road. We are, of course, going to be changing topics, moving in a different direction. We are going to be talking about for sale by owners. We're going to be talking about for rent by owners this month. We're going to talk a lot about investors in a sense this month. So I want to be able to break that down. We're going to continue to grow the audience. And again, for those of you that are joining us over on YouTube, over on Instagram, I'm going to encourage you to come join us over here on Zoom as we are. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties. Nothing out of the norm. Anyways, I'm going to encourage you to come join us over here on Zoom. All the information is there. We are going to share the script. We are going to continue to break all of that good stuff down. So let me get into my notes here, make a couple of quick adjustments. And if you guys have any questions, I'm going to encourage you to come join us here on Zoom. All right. So in my notes for sale by owners, one of the things that I want to make sure that we all understand is why do I focus on for sale by owners? Why do I like for sale by owners? What's the benefit of the for sale by owners? Well, here's the thing is if we were to go through, anybody need business today? Anybody? Other than everybody. Exactly. Okay. So the market is down. A lot of markets are down 30-40% in terms of overall closings. And if this happens to be your market, this is definitely something you want to pay attention to. And the reason I want you to pay attention to this is because of the sources where you can get immediate business from, it's been identified numerous times that the quickest way to get a transaction, number one, in today's market is going to be a buyer. A buyer. It actually is. A buyer is going to get you the quickest transaction. Number two, however, is the number one source as far as a listing is concerned, which is technically the number one source to get a listing, is going to be that of for sale by owners. Why for sale by owners versus all of the other sources is because 100 of them identified and said, hey, I want to sell my house. And if you're in a position where you're needing a listing, you're needing a transaction, this is something you really want to pay attention to. Okay. The second source we're going to talk about is for rent by owners. Okay. Now, with for rent by owners, it's a separate script. It's a similar audience, but it's a completely different conversation. Okay. Because a for sale by owner, they're trying to sell it themselves, where a for rent by owner, they're actively trying to identify a tenant. Okay. But they can become synonymous to each other, as we continue to move forward. All right. So now let's talk about the points, okay? Because the points are very, very important. What we need to do is we need to create not one, but two focal points. We talked about this about 6 months ago, 7 months ago, 8 months ago. And I said, okay, everybody, I need you guys to pay attention to this because in around July, August, or September, we're going to talk about this topic. And I know it didn't make sense then, but guess what? It totally makes sense now. Okay. And this is something that I want to make sure that the audience understands, because this is where you can capitalize. This is where you can kind of turn I haven't had a transaction in a month or 2 or 3 or 4, or shoot, for that matter, the entire year, and completely turn it around with everything we're going to talk about this month. Okay. So in that, by creating what I call as two focal points, 6, 7 months ago, you guys were like, what? I don't understand. What's the purpose of this? So on and so forth. Well, the two focal points that I'm referring to, focal point number one is I want you to identify your top 3 zip codes. Okay, I'll make sense of it in just a second. Your top 3 zip codes. What are the 3 zip codes that you want to go after? Okay, what are the 3 zip codes? If you had a choice to take a listing today, which zip code would that be in? Focal point number 2 is your top 3 cities. Okay, we're probably more on the cities than we are on the zip codes focus right now. And again, I'm just going to break it down here in just a little bit. But the second focal point is your top 3 cities. Okay. For example, I come from a market formerly known or formerly in Rancho Cucamonga. Rancho Cucamonga, there's 5 zip codes. Okay, so if I were to pick 3, I wouldn't even be moving cities. So in that, I would identify 1 or 2, and then I'd pick another city or another zip code in a sense. Okay, so let me break it down in its detail. So in focal point number 1, it's your top 3 zip codes. The second one is your top 3 cities. Why are we creating separation? Because back 6, 7, 8 months ago, was there a lot of for sale by owners? Not really. Okay. Is there a lot of for sale by owners now? Not so much, but they're starting to accumulate. And why are they starting to accumulate? Because they're not selling. They're not selling at the pace that they were 6, 7 months ago, let alone 2 years ago. So now these for sale by owners, where it was hey, I don't need you, and then they get 2, 3, 4 offers and they sell it over the course of a weekend, don't need a realtor. But they're struggling today. They're having a hard time. They're going through the frustrations, the annoyances that everybody else is. And because of that, what they're doing is that they are starting to get becoming more ripe a little bit quicker. Okay. And what I mean by that is before we would talk about it would be about 6 to 8 weeks. So some of these for sale by owners don't take 6 to 8 weeks anymore because they know that with what's going on in the real estate market. Now, here's the other part. Are agents doing more activity or less activity right now? Less. Why? Because they're giving up. They're quitting. The market sucks. Okay, I'm not doing with what I'm supposed to. Instead, what am I going to do? I'm going to go on a hike. I'm going to go, I'm going to go hang out for the weekend. I'm going to whatever. I do all of these other activities, but they don't do exactly with what they're supposed to be doing. And what I'm telling my coaching clients is that not only do you have to do with what it is that I've been asking of you to do, but you're likely going to have to add another 30, 40, or even 50% effort just to get the same exact results. How do we use these focal points now? The reason I want you to identify this is because as you pull up your for sale by owners every single day, there's going to be one or maybe two or three or five or seven. If you don't have the volume, you need to do a couple things. One is you have to expand your search, number one. And number two is you have to look at what are the standards. Did you previously have standards to where it would only identify these areas, it would only identify these type of price points, whatever it is. So you're going to need to expand. And in that, you're going to start to create a sense of accumulation. And I still get this coach, there's not a lot of for sale by owners. I spoke with an agent literally 2 days ago, says, yeah, there's not a lot of for sale by owners. That's interesting. Actually, I feel it's the complete opposite. There's actually more for sale by owners now than there ever has been. Why do you say that? Well, I look up in the system and there's probably only 2 or 3 a week. Okay, yeah. Is there some weeks where there's 4, 5, and 6? Well, yeah, but that's not really a lot. Well, it is when you start to create the system. And the system is what we're going to break down for the next 2 weeks. And what is the system? Well, you have to be able to build a system to where you're going to follow up with them week after 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 week until they're ready to list their home. And sometimes that's going to be 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, or even 12 weeks. So we need to create a system because of that. Now, you pull up a property today, or a FSBO today, and or a second or a third or a fourth, and one of the 4 ends up falling in your top 3 zip codes. What are you going to do with that? Well, that one you have to create the urgency, and the urgency is you got to go and knock on that door. You have to create a sense of discipline so that when a for sale by owner shows up in your focal point 1 or your focal point number 2, you got to have that discipline to go out and knock on those doors. Now, why do we have 2 separate ones? The reason we have 2 separate ones, as I had mentioned before 6, 7, 8 months ago, is that back then it didn't make any sense because there was only 1 or 2 that were showing up a week. Now it's a little bit closer to about 4, 6, or 7, and you need to have some version of a system. And in that, as you're accumulating, as I've mentioned, over the course of, let's say 10 or 12 weeks, let's keep it simple, 10 weeks, and there's 4 a week, well, that's 40 people you're following up with. And as those numbers start to go up, you need to have that system to where you need to go out there as quickly as you possibly can. Now, why am I asking of you to go out and knock on these people's doors? Because how many people knock on for sale by owners? None. Seldom. Very rare. Even the people that I coach, I'm struggling to get them to go and knock on the doors, and they're making really good money. So your competition is either 0 or maybe 1 other person. And if you're in LA, you're in New York, you're in, a bigger metro market, Dallas, you're in Chicago, maybe 2 or 3. But if you're anything that's other than the cities that I just mentioned, or maybe even Miami, other than the cities that I just mentioned, the likelihood is you're not going to have much more than 1 or 2 people that you're competing with. Over the phone, though, you're probably going to have 50, 100, 150 people you're going to be competing with. So you want to be 1 of 2, or do you want to be 1 of 150? The other thing too is that being in person, it gives you the opportunity to be able to create a different layer of relationship. Because over the phone, we're just another person. In person, knock on the door, it gives us the opportunity to be personable. And there's a difference because now when we go through following the system, which again, I'm going to break it all down in its entirety. As we go through, now I'm sitting there saying, Mr. and Mrs. For Sale by Owner, hey, it's Robert, the realtor that stopped by at your home on Saturday. Oh, hey, Robert, what's up? Versus Mr. and Mrs. For Sale by Owner, hey, this is Robert, the realtor. We spoke last week. Well, I spoke to like 30 of them. I don't remember you. I'm sorry. They're going to find themselves in a position of desperation. Are sellers having a hard time to sell right now? Some of them. And in some areas, a lot of them. Okay. I looked at a map not too long ago, and actually, I was looking at a map here locally. And when I first got here in the Central Valley, I looked at the map and I was like, wow, there's like only like 4 or 5 listings in like a 6-7 mile radius. Now, looking at the exact same map, there's probably about 120 listings in the exact same thing. So it sounds a little sarcastic, but it is. That's basically in a nutshell with what ended up happening in the market. So now there is an influx of a lot of these sellers. And what do you think was happening with the properties that are off the MLS, which are the FSBOs? The exact same thing. You just have to identify them. So let me get to some questions here now that I'm finished on my soapbox. I know, Shelly, let's take a look. So I'm going to need to call out my area for sale by owners for referral fees, thinking creatively because my area doesn't have FSBOs to call. So let's address that because every market, and I get this from agents all the time, Shelly, where they'll sit there and say, oh yeah, not in my market. No, that's not the case. You look in your system. Was there any one today? No. Is there one yesterday?
We have 2. One is in Manteca and
Okay.
one is in Brentwood. So that's fine. The last 2, they came off the market. Like literally, I don't know. Tell me where these markets are that have all these for sale by owners. I'll call them and then I'll refer out the appointments because I swear to you, Brentwood, Manteca, Tracy, California, Mount House, California. Those are huge. That's my area, and I am not. I've expanded my area already for that.
So here's the one thing I'm going to say in regards to that,
Put it in there.
because I actually coach somebody that's not too far from you in San Jose. Okay. So, and as far as that is concerned, because we look in the system at, yeah, there's one in Manteca. Yeah, it's basically too far for me anyways. But here's the thing is that over the course of the week, there's going to be 1, 2, or 3. Now, is there a lot today? Probably not today on Tuesday. Is there going to be a lot tomorrow? There's the one. And every single week, there's 1, 2, or 3. In some markets, it's going to be more. Now, the system we need to create, remember, over the course of 8, 10, or 12 weeks, let's just use the number 10 weeks as an example. And even if there's 2 or 3 a week, that's 20 to 30 for sale by owners. Okay. And I've done this again numerous times with numerous clients, and I get the exact same thing. Coach, there is no for sale by owners. Okay, I get that. When was the last FSBO? Well, I got there was one on Thursday. Okay, what was the one before that? Well, there was one on Wednesday. Okay, what about that? Well, what about before that? Well, there was 2 on Monday. Okay, well, that's 4. I get it. There's not a lot. So what we need to do is we need to continue to create the system, because every week, if you're getting 2 to 4, you're going to have 20, 30, 40, or 50 people that you're going to be following up with.
And the last 2 that I had, one sold and then one got rented. That's why I didn't have anyone to follow up respectfully. I've been following this since like 4 months.
Okay. Okay. So let's break it down. I mean, there could be an isolation. Basically there is that market that maybe I'm not 100% aware of. But for the most part, it's going to work in 98%, 99% of all regions. And as far as referrals is concerned, absolutely. Why not? You might actually want to call in other markets. One of my good friends back in 2005, 6, and 7, we created this, this relationship where if it was on this side of the freeway, I would call them. And if it was on this side of the freeway, he would call them. So in other words, what we would do is because of this time, we would call expires, and we started realizing, hey, there's not a lot of expires because the market is like blowing up. I said, well, I still want to call them. I don't want to not call them because, the last 2 years have been great for me. So what we would do is we would sit there, and before Calendly would come up, I would say, hey, I got an appointment for you over in, west part of here. So that's something you might even want to look into. And yeah, we would do probably a good 5, 6, 7 deals that we would reciprocate back and forth. And there was even some where we actually partnered up on, because we would both call and set an appointment. So we would just go on it together. Okay. So Let me move in a different direction. I want to be able to share the script. Any questions, comments, concerns from either YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, I'm going to encourage you, feel free to go ahead and ask away, and then we'll go ahead and get those questions answered. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share script here real quick. I'm going to break this down. We're going to continue to break this down. So let me get there. All right, so the way I want you guys to do, and again, those of you guys that are on YouTube, on Instagram, I'm going to encourage you, got to come join us so you can see exactly what I'm sharing, okay? And again, the Zoom ID is there. All right, so here we go. Here's the script. So with the for sale by owner script. All right, so the FSBO script, what we're doing is we want to create this from a standpoint of a fill in the blank. Okay, and what I mean by a fill in the blank is we have the for sale by owner script. And in that for sale by owner script, when we set an appointment, we came off of this last month, and that is to go right into the prequal. So what I do is I'm going to encourage you, or what I've done is I have the for sale by owner script on one side, and then I have the prequel on the back side. And what I also do is I leave a blank. So in other words, fill in the blank. Here's the question, here's the answer. And every single last one of the for sale by owners eventually becomes, has what is called a for sale by owner profile sheet. As I'm calling these people the very first time, or I go knock on their door or whatever it is, my job is to fill in as many of those blanks as possible. So go through the FSBO script and answer that question. Go to the prequal script and answer that question. Now, there might be a time where you're going to go through, get question number 1, get question number 2. They don't answer question number 3. They don't answer question number 4, but they volunteered question and answer for number 5 because that's what they said at the very, very beginning. You know, so now we just kind of, in a sense, fill in the blank. I go through question number 6, and all of a sudden they hang up on me, or they just go, hey, not interested, close the door. I only was able to gather 4, 5, or 6 of the questions, of all the questions from the script and the prequel. So what's the purpose? Why am I saying this? Because in this, if it's in my focal points, I'm going to go and knock on the door immediately. If it's there, I'm going to go and knock on that door. Ideally, your top 3 zip codes, it's probably going to be a 5 to 10 minute drive immediately. There is no, should I, they just hung up on me, you know, whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is, if it's in your focal points, you have to go knock on that door. So now moving on. In breaking down the script, with what we want to do is, there's 2 versions of this script. So there's a current version, which is the Mike Ferry script that I've been a part of tutelage for over 25 years. And in this script, just because people want to know, why does it say the word survey in that script? The reason it says the word survey in that script is because of 2008, the do not call, the DNC law. So by saying the word, it's a survey, we're no longer, in a sense, soliciting. Okay, so there's a little bit of a gray area. I actually learned before even that, and what I would do is I'd go through, hi, this is Robert, I'm a local realtor with blank blank realty, and I'm calling about the home for sale. Is this the owner? Okay, I help a lot of for sale by owner in the area, and I was wondering, when you sell this home, where are you going to next? Okay, where are you going to next? Now in this, we have to be prepared. So right now I'm working with my team, I'm working with my agents, and we're talking about where every single last question is going to lead to one of 2 results. At least it should. And we need to be prepared for that. In the question that I just asked, when you sell this home, where are you guys going to next? Well, they're going to give us a destination, ideally. Okay, that's the goal. But the second option is, I don't live there, and it's an investment property. So we want to think of in the direction of, okay, is this where you live, or is this an investment property? And with for sale by owners, it's right around 60-40. 60% of them are going to be living in the home, 40% of them do not reside in the home. So don't get surprised when they sit there and say, well, I actually don't even live there. I'm just going to go ahead and cash out, or I'm thinking about reinvesting the monies elsewhere. Regardless of the point, ideally, you're going to get a response. There's going to be some times where they go, why does that matter? Move on. You're right. It doesn't matter. Okay. But I am curious though, how soon are you looking to be there? Or how soon are you wanting to get this property sold? And again, most of the time we're going to get the response of, I'm not in a rush. We're not in any hurry. And in some cases, they're sitting there, and I've seen these for sale by owners where they're literally 3 months behind in their payments and they're not wanting to pay a commission and they're about to get foreclosed on, and they say the exact same thing. We're not really in a hurry. You got to be prepared for that type of a response. Or sometimes they volunteer the information. Yeah, we want to be out of here by the end of the year. But I'm going to be more prepared on the first one because that's going to be a more common response for me with for sale by owners. Yeah, we're not really in a hurry. Well, that's perfectly fine. Okay. What would be the ideal time frame? Okay. So in that, as you're asking the questions, be prepared for the questions between the questions. Okay. Because we never know, we got to be in a position to pivot. And in that pivoting, sometimes it's going to be this is our family home. We've lived here forever. We're just looking for our forever home. We're just looking for the next home, whatever it is, our home, our home, our home. And then there's going to be the complete opposite of that is like, I'm just trying to get rid of the property. I'm sick and tired of this property. It's an absolute headache. It's frustrating. I'm just simply looking to cash out or looking to reinvest the monies. And this is probably the part where it's more important than ever before, because when we're calling around expireds, just listeds, database, or most of these other homes, it's going to be probably in the 90th percentile that it's going to be their home. So with for sale by owners and for rent by owners, obviously for rent by owners, it's going to be the other way around, where 90% of them is going to be homes that they don't live in. 10% will be like, yeah, we currently live here, but we're looking to keep it as a rental. So you're going to be speaking to people that are going to be a little bit more investor mindset. So I want to equip you and be prepared so that when people do give us that information, that we can be able to pivot in that direction. It's an investment property of ours. We're just simply looking to move the monies. Oh, okay. So are you thinking about doing a 1031 exchange? Well, what is that? Or yeah, we are thinking about that. So now you have to be able to have an investor's jargon. And it's okay if you don't have the answers to it. One thing that that I've done in the past is when I would get some of these questions like, do you know what the cap rate is on that? Shoot, what is a cap rate? Right? Or sometimes I know what the cap rate is. Or I know what the terminology of cap rate is, but I don't know the cap rate of it is. And I'll sit there and I'll just simply say, that's a great question. As a matter of fact, I haven't ran those numbers. What I can do is I can go ahead and pull up the information and I can give you a call back. Now, the reason you're asking as far as the cap rate is concerned, are you thinking about possibly investing? Are you thinking about selling? Is there a certain cap rate that you're wanting to get to, or a minimum of? So you want to be prepared with additional layers of questions. Now, how would you rate your motivation to move on a scale 1 to 10? Whatever the number they give you, I always like to have a follow-up question. And the follow-up question to that, how would you rate your motivation to move on a scale of 1 to 10? They go, well, it's like a 6. Well, my follow-up question is always going to be, well, what would make it a 10? Because there are going to be some times where they're going to absolutely pivot. And it could be completely different reasons. It could be because of a job relocation. Right now, they don't know where they're going. They just know that they want to get the property sold, and they're hoping to, because their boss told them that by the end of the month, they're going to know where they're going. Okay. Or again, pregnancy. And now they're going to be completely pulled off from maternity leave in about 30 days. And they're not realizing it today because the conversation they're going to have with their doctor next week, all of a sudden creates that urgency that they weren't aware of today. So be prepared from all of those directions as to what's going to be their motivation and why. And as we talked about before, we always want to be in a position of knowing their motivation, because if we don't know their motivation, we can't move these people. We're going to end up in those dead end conversations. We're going to think about it. We don't know if the timing is ready, all this other stuff. And you're like, all right, well, I guess. Instead, you have to be able to have the information based on with what it is that they want, so that you can move the conversation forward. Now, number 4, share with me, how are you currently marketing your home? Now, this is a little bit different than it has been in the past. Because now there's the Come List Me's, there's the Zillows, there's the social medias, there's the all of this other Facebook marketplace. There's all of this stuff now that there wasn't, even 5, 10, or even 15 years ago. So we need to be prepared in regards to share with me how you're currently marketing your home with whatever the response they give us. And no matter what, I'm going to ask them, whether it's week 1 or week 7, how's that working for you? And again, they're always going to give us a response if it's working good. Not really. It isn't. Okay. Because why are you in the market for 7 weeks? All right. What do you ask? What price are you asking? How did you come up with that price? Sometimes the information is on there. Most of the time, the information is on there in regards to the price. Sometimes it isn't. Okay. When the price is there, I just go right into it. I see that Mr. and Mrs. First Sale by Owner, you're asking for $800,000. I'm curious, how'd you guys come up with that price? Okay. And they're always going to sit there and tell you their neighbor's estimate, all this other stuff. And it's okay. It doesn't matter to me what they respond with. That's great. That's awesome. I'm glad you actually did your homework. Now, I am curious, though, as you may or may not know, the market has slowed down quite drastically. Are you prepared to adjust your price down when working with a buyer? So now that gives us the opportunity to start to create a little bit of doubts. Okay. I am curious, why did you decide to sell yourself rather than list with a real estate agent like myself? And it's always going to be the same thing. 99% of the time, it's going to be what? The money. The 1, 2, or 5% is going to be the I didn't know who to use. I didn't know who to go with. I was a little bit confused in regards to which agent I wanted to use. So I figured I'd just give it a shot on my own since I've sold a home myself before. Okay. And we're going to continue to break this down. Okay, we're going to continue to break this down, but I just want to go through a very, very quick version of this because we are doing this in a 2-week span instead of a 30-week span. Now, if you were to list, which agent would you list with? Okay, which agent would you list with? There are going to be some, not some, there's going to be a larger percentage of them that are going to say, I have an agent in mind. If I were to use an agent, it would be this agent. If I were to, consider anybody, I have a person in mind. Good, awesome. I'm glad you actually did your homework and you do have some options. So don't be caught off guard in regards to that question. Now, in that, I am going to have a follow-up, though. How'd you happen to pick that agent? What is it about that agent that, piqued your interest? Then from there, if they do have an agent in mind, which again, the largest percentage of the time, I'm going to have an even further follow-up question. What is it that you're looking for in your realtor? Okay, what's an important characteristic? And then I'm even going to throw some things that makes it about me. What makes me special? Are you looking for a realtor that has great communication? How about a great resume? Okay. How about a proven track record? How about a plan of action to get your home sold? So now I'm suggestively give them characteristics because now I can use this as part of my arsenal. All right. So in question number 10 and question number 11, some people get confused on this. Okay. One isn't specific to time. Another one is specific to condition. Now, number 1 is if you were to list, what would you expect the agent to do to get your home sold? We already got that one, but I'm sorry, number 11 and number 12. Now, how much time will you take before you'll consider reviewing the right agent for the job of selling your home? This is time specific. We're going to give it until the end of the month. We might give it through this weekend. We might give it another 60 days or whatever it is. The second question, because I get agents ask me all the time, well, why are we asking the same question again? It's not. And the second question is, besides time, you'll notice that I put that in there, besides time, what has to happen before you'll consider hiring a powerful agent like myself for the job of selling your home? Going back to one of the examples that I gave is, well, right now we're just really waiting for that job transfer. And if I get that job transfer, depending on when I have to report, that would probably be the only thing that would, keep me from just continuing on and selling it myself. Okay. All right. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to continue to break this down. We are going to get into some role play. Any questions, comments, concerns, anything in the last minute? No, we're good. Thank you guys for tuning in. We are going to continue to break this down. Oh, Shelly, I'm sorry. You had a question in there. I didn't even realize that. So let me address that. So is it acceptable to take the time to drive to door knock when it reduces the amount of time I spend making calls? Before we take the time to door knock, is it our immediate CD? We would want to know the occupancy status, wouldn't we? No, not necessarily on the occupancy status. And let me address that part first. The reason I don't care is because I actually get excited when there's a tenant there. Because in that, when I go and knock on the door, and let's say you're the owner, Shelly, and I knock on the door and there's Bob, and Bob answers, I say, yeah, hi, I'm looking for Shelly. Oh, yeah, no, that's the owner. Oh, okay. So what, who are you? Oh, I'm the tenant. Oh, well, as you know, Shelly was trying to get the property sold. Where are you guys thinking about making that move to? Yeah, I know. We really trying to figure things out. Have you considered possibly buying? So it gives me the opportunity to create that connection. Okay. Now, as far as distance is concerned, no, I don't want you driving 30, 45 minutes. The door knocking is, in most cases, is going to be at the end of your prospecting session, which should be around 11:30, 12, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's when you're going to go and door knock them. And those should be 5, 10, not much more than 15 minutes of a drive. Okay. So it shouldn't be at the expense of your phone prospecting. Okay. All right, everybody. I'll see you guys. Let's take a look. So tomorrow, yes, we don't have anything later on today. So tomorrow we have two different trainings. One is going to be, of course, a script summit that with what we're doing. And then the second one is Frank Donnelly's going to break down the listing presentation in its entirety. So listing presentation 101, that's going to be tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Thank you guys for tuning in. Go take a listing or 5. Let's go kick ass. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.